Hello, and you're very welcome to Mind Blowing. I'm Paul Gill.
And I'm Siobhan Lyon, and today we're going to be discussing past lives. Very exciting.
Past lives. It's an interesting thing. For those of you who don't know or haven't heard of past lives is the idea that you've lived before. This is not your first time around. You've been around before, even multiple times. You've been around, and it's something that's common to a lot of religions worldwide.
Yeah, like we talk about Buddhism, I suppose, really is one piece of religion that it comes into where they believe in reincarnation, and it's a very big thing there.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that you come back as a human being, though, and that you could be an animal or an insect. You kind of go up the
What would
chain.
you come back as, Paul, if you could?
Oh, a human being, I think. I'd like to try that.
I'd like to be a butterfly.
No, I don't know. You could be a bird, but then some idiot probably shoots you or you get hit by a truck.
Yeah, or a hawk. Come down and just...
Yeah. It's funny you mention a hawk because there was a guy who was very much into like your spirit animals thing. You know, well, shamanism. Mine would be a hawk.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez. I can't remember what mine is.
I don't know.
It's like a rat or something like that.
Right, we'll move on from it.
It's something weird. I remember looking at it going, Jesus, is that my animal like that? And then my youngest daughter is a rabbit, and it's so appropriate for her. She's fabulous.
You're not talking about Chinese astrology now, you're talking about...
Is that
that's different.
It's different.
That's different.
Okay.
Right. I was kind of wondering how you knew that. I remember as a 7-year-old, we this dog, and I remember going up the garden with the dog, and the dog used to howl and sing, and I get the dog to howl and sing as well.
Yes.
But I remember thinking, I know what it feels like to be a dog.
Oh yeah.
7. So I kind of thought, I must have been a dog in a previous life. This is before I'd ever heard of past lives.
Wow.
At all. Yeah. But in Christianity, the idea of past lives, it used to be in Scripture. It used to be in the Bible, and it was edited. Out of this book that can't be changed apparently. But it was edited out, and the reason it was edited out, I think it was around the time the Dead Sea Scrolls were hidden away, was that the institutions of the church wanted to control people and wanted people to kind of put up your misery and your suffering in this life because you get rewarded in the next life. But if that wasn't true and the people were going to be coming around recycled round and round again, people kind of go, no, I'm not happy to put up in my lot in this life. I want better.
You don't get another choice.
Yeah.
Basically.
So it was about power and about control. So those were omitted. But I do past lives, or have done past lives with people in hypnosis.
Yeah, I remember seeing you years ago. We met. I'd say it must be about easily 13 or 14 years ago.
Yeah.
And you stood up and you did a presentation. And you
talked
about past. It was brilliant. Yeah, I was fascinated actually because I don't believe in people having a past life. So
did I convert you?
You didn't really know.
Oh, right.
I just thought it was interesting because I think that we were impressive enough. He was wearing a suit and everything, lads. It was great.
Back in the day.
He was all dickied up for the occasion. But it was actually very interesting what you were saying about people's past lives and the experience. And I think that's nearly more of what it is for me. It's somebody's experience of their past life. Yeah.
I remember studying this a lot when I started doing hypnosis first and writing a lot about it and researching it. What I was trying to get to was a decision as to whether past lives were a real thing, a real phenomenon, or whether they were imagined.
Okay.
And in the end, I came to the conclusion that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because when I do past lives with people, many times people will like to think that they were, Cleopatra in a previous life, or Julius Caesar or somebody famous, but not all of us could have been somebody famous. Like many people have past lives that they're just ordinary Joe or Josephine so going around the business. Some people do experience that, but I had somebody years and years ago. A man who came to me and he wanted to explore past lives.
Yeah.
And so I did. And we went through, there's 3 past lives, I can remember correctly. And they all had a commonality that in all of these past lives, he died when he was 17. So one of them, I think he was in World War One. He was in an enclave that were kind of surrounded by the opposition army. And he knew he was going to die, and he panicked, and he was afraid, and he made a run for it, and was shot in the back, and died. And it's interesting that he was shot in the back, because I'm going to come back to that in a moment.
Okay.
Another one, he was at a nightclub in the 1950s in the UK, and somebody gave him something, mixed something into his drink.
Oh God!
And he came outside with some kind of a facial attack and died. 17.
Okay.
I can't remember what the third one was off the top of my head, but he was really enthusiastic and amazing. Oh my God, all these things. And I said, what happened in your life when you were 17? He said, oh, I died in World War One, and I died outside of that nightclub. And I said, no, what happened to you when you were 17? I said, well, I've done that. And I said, no, in this life, what happened to you when you were 17? And when he was 17, he was made destitute. He fell out with his parents and threw him out. He was homeless.
Oh God.
And his life effectively ended. So whether this was a subconscious representation of that, like a fantasy thing, that my life stopped being what it was and it had to become something else, or nothing at all. Because he was going to live through a very bad.
That's very interesting, because I think it really feeds into who you believe you are, or the people that you, or the person you decide you're going to be. You know, if you want to change your life, for example, which I think people do that regularly, especially if you become a therapist, you know, you're kind of launched into changing your life. You're launched into reflecting on who you have been, I suppose, for your entire life, and the reasons why you are the way you are. And then, you know, you have to kind of change, because you can't reverse. We were only talking about this briefly yesterday when we were setting up the room here. We were thinking, like, you can't go back and undo the work you've done once you become a therapist. The training that you go through,
you can't.
Rigorous, isn't it? Like, really, some lecturers would really gruel you.
Yeah, it changes your whole mental perspective, and you can't go back.
But I think the past life, there's a guy that talks about this that I absolutely love, Dr. Joe Dispenza. He used to be kind of a chiropractor or whatever, but he got really into the mystical, you know, and he does these meditations. And he reckons that he saw his past life as well, where he was persecuted for speaking out about, you know, for preaching, I suppose. He was one of these people back in the time of Jesus, I'd say, maybe around that time. And that they basically nearly cut his tongue out for talking, you know, and he had to live out his days in a cave without speaking. But he realized that in his current life, like what you were saying,
that's the recurring theme.
Yeah, it was a recurrent theme. There was still people persecuting him for what he believed in, because no real doctor believes in the supernatural, or no real doctor,
some of them
you know, talks about that. Well, he does.
Yeah,
you know?
some of them, they won't speak about it or won't be outspoken as him. So yeah, it was the same thing. See, this connects with dreams as well, because in dreams you play out your issues in whatever kind of fantasy or imaginary thing.
I love that, actually. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, you'll always play out stuff. And I was thinking there was I saw a YouTube video, but I knew of this case. It was a Japanese boy who claimed that he was shot down as a fighter pilot in World War II.
Oh, I think I remember this.
And he was able to show people where the plane was in the sea.
Oh my gosh!
And lots of information. And there's lots of other cases. Anecdotal. I don't know how much research has gone into a lot of these, whether people can absolutely prove them. But an interesting one that I came across was a guy who he claimed to have lived in, I don't know, was it medieval London, that he was a boy, and he remember going to town with his father and being able to count all this, and he was able to talk about where certain buildings were. And this is pre-internet, so you could Google anything and get old maps of London now, but you couldn't then. So let's assume he was telling the truth. He could say where certain people had lived, certain buildings, and his father. But he remembered his father had to go visit some banker, or he was trying to get money or a loan or something like that. But then he also remembered lots of details from other people's lives as well. It's as if he had a kind of a mix of past lives in his head. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, well, why should it be that we only have kind of like one coherent past life, that you know you were born at this time, you lived to this, and then you died, and then you recycle and you come back into another life? It's like, to me, it's like a puddle of water. And it's a puddle of water. It has its identity as a puddle of water, but then the sun comes out and it starts to be evaporated up into the sky. So it gets broken up, and then it's mixed with other puddles that have evaporated up there, and then it's rained down again into another puddle.
Is that the concept of energy? You know, always being and always will be continuous. You can't create or destroy it.
It's just recycles. It's kind of it can become something else, a little bit like that. So like Jung would have said that we were all part of this collective unconscious. And this kind of might tie into that theory, actually. That we are all kind of connected, and we know things. And I think that our past lives could be like this, if there is such a thing as past lives. And I'm agnostic as regards this. I never say it definitely is or there isn't, unless I actually think that I know. So in all of the research side, if somebody sits in front of me and says, I think I've had past lives, I say, right, I think you've had
Just go
past
with that.
lives. You go with it. And you find out what is the benefit of them connecting with this past. What will you learn? What is the life lesson you'll take away from that life?
Yeah, it intrigues me. I would be intrigued in a session with a client if they brought up their past life, and I would definitely listen to it. You know,
Well, I'll tell you an understanding one.
It's nearly kind of gathering an understanding of the person. And okay, so
well, I'll tell you an interesting one, Siobhan, that just popped into my head, and this you'll probably get the hair stand up in the back of your neck. I had a guy come to me years ago, and we were doing regression therapy, which is like bringing somebody back into their past of this life. And this person spontaneously regressed somewhere else. So remember, he was sitting on the seat, but he curled his legs, his feet up into a fetal position, and he was there like that on the seat, kind of like that. And I said to him, how do you feel? He said, I feel bound up and hemmed in. And I said, where are you? And to my surprise, he said, I'm bound up, my hands and my feet are bound up in the fetal position. I'm 12 years of age and I'm being sacrificed.
Oh, God.
Did a little bit of work around that. There wasn't a whole lot more about that. Interesting thing is that guy went to Peru. He was due to go to Peru anyway, but he went to Peru. And in Peru, they were supposed to go and see this city. It's Machu Picchu, isn't it? The deserted city up in the mountains. But he couldn't go that day. He got some kind of a stomach bug, and he couldn't go, and all the rest of the people left. But when they were gone, he felt a little bit better, and he thought, you know, I'll meander off into the local village to see can I kill some time. And while he was wandering around the village, this old lady grabbed him, pulled him in off the street, and said, "You've been here before."
Oh, God bless.
And he goes, "What?" And she said, "You were sacrificed on top of that mountain when you were 12." Yeah,
that's weird.
That's weird.
Oh my God, imagine that happening to you.
And this
Let
guy,
us know in the comments down below, lads, if you had any of these experiences. Actually,
this guy actually had a natural aptitude for making pottery, even though he never trained in it. He reckons that belonged to a past life as well.
Yeah, most likely, because there would have been a lot of that.
Yeah. So these things
are just very creative.
Well, these things are fascinating. But when you regress somebody, there's several different ways of regressing somebody into past life. But basically, you bring them on some sort of a journey.
Okay.
Normally, you get them to relax, close their eyes, working their breath, slowing everything right down, because it's a very simple way to relax for anything. It's just if you deliberately slow your breath down, whether you feel like it or not, it has the knock-on effect of slowing everything else right down, because you can't be anxious or agitated when you're breathing very slowly. You're naturally going to be calm and relaxed. And when you get calm and relaxed, you get into this state of daydreaming kind of a mind.
Okay.
And then you might bring them down 10 steps into a garden. You might have them see a stream or a river at the end of the garden. They get into a boat. There's a guide, somebody there, like a kind of a gondola. They bring the boat, goes off down the stream, goes down in through an archway, in through a tunnel, stops at this kind of harbour. You go up some steps. There's a wooden door. You open the door, and then you're now back in your past life.
So it's a whole journey to it.
Is
that in hypnosis?
Yeah, it's in hypnosis. Yes.
Okay.
And you're furnishing the mind with material that it can work with.
Don't try this at home, by the way. You would come to a professional.
But you get the person then when they step through this door into their past life to maybe look at their feet. Can you see your feet? You know, are the male or female feet? Okay. What have you got on your feet? Or, you know, anything on your feet? Look how you're dressed, and you come up, and you get them to build up a picture of themselves and a day in their life. Who do they know in this life? Are they living with a family? What age are they? And then you go through an important thing that happened in their life, and then you go through the last day of their life and how they felt when they died.
Wow.
And that can be very profound.
Yeah.
And very, very useful.
Yeah.
And again, whether it's real or whether it's imagined, doesn't make any difference, because you can only talk about yourself and from yourself.
Yeah, I think it's connected to how you feel about yourself.
Everything is.
Anyway.
You're always expressing yourself. I remember studying art when I started studying hypnosis. Somebody brought a painting. The tutor brought a painting into the class. It looked like 4 kind of monks with different kind of gifts. It was kind of very hazy. And he got us to try to analyze the picture, to kind of say what impression was coming back from that picture. It was very good training, because when you look at any person, then you kind of get an impression back. But you know, what can you tell about the artist who might have painted a picture? And it turned out the picture was painted by somebody who was in an asylum.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember somebody in the class got that.
An asylum. That's a real old name for a mental health institution.
Yeah. But
Mental wellness centre.
But you see, this you're reading people by the way you dress, by the car you drive, where you live, the way you speak, the people you hang around with. It's all giving information about you out to the world. And if you stop and listen and watch, you can gain a lot of that. You can understand people just by watching them, where they are.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just to go back as well to what you were saying a few minutes ago about, people recognizing who they were in past lives. I remember watching a thing actually on YouTube that was about this lady who had received a heart, from somebody who died. And she could actually had memories that the person
weren't her memories.
They weren't her memories. And then another lady who received a heart from a young lad who was killed off a motorbike. He was 18 or 19 or something when he died, and she got his heart, and she suddenly developed a craving for things like chips, or fries, and beer and different things.
Never got
before. Things that she'd never liked before. She suddenly had a craving for those things and had to eat them.
That makes sense.
But there was another really fascinating story where this little girl received a heart from another little girl that was killed actually violently. Let's censor this out a little bit. But anyways, she remembered all the details, and her mother brought her to a psychiatrist because she thought she was having these really disturbing dreams. And the psychiatrist maintained that they were the memories of the child she'd received the heart from. And they opened a full-scale investigation. She was able to describe what the perpetrator, the guy who killed the child, looked like and everything.
Wow.
And he was caught, and he admitted it. It was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you can't fake that stuff.
No,
that to me is a definite yes. That definitely.
Well, you see, don't we all know that the body's got cellular memory?
Yeah, but they say that the heart has its own brain.
The heart is part of the brain. Yeah, they've discovered that recently. Science. I mean, it's what romantics and poets would have always said, that the heart is part of the brain. Your brain, you've got the vagus nerve coming down into the stomach, and that's where the stomach is part of the brain as well, and the heart.
Yeah.
So you got three brains. All thinking hearts just one. But this like when you hear of people, maybe elderly couples live together for 50 years, one dies, the other one dies 6 months later, of heartbreak.
Yeah.
And it literally is.
Yeah.
They lose the will to live, and the heart just moves on and stuff.
It's romantic, but it's sad as well at the same time.
You know what? I was related with a story by a psychologist many years ago, and he was doing work for I'm going to say a military power in Africa back in the 1960s. They were doing research, and it was kind of off the books research. And part of this research was to study how people are in war and how to cope with pain and how their minds can adapt to pain. And he said one of the things that the military did was to break legs of people, villagers, and get them to walk and carry heavy loads and see how they adapted to that. It was horrible stuff.
That's tremendous, yeah.
But he said that one day they had to go off on a particular mission. So they had this young guy, you can imagine early 20s, strong, healthy guy, machete, hacking his way through the jungle to make a pathway for them to go off. And they were all day off. And when they came back to the village nighttime, a neighboring tribe come in and they massacred everybody in the village. So this guy's whole family were massacred, parents, kids, every body parts all over the place. And this psychologist said to me that young man sat under a tree and he started to cry and he started to sob, really heavy, sobbing. 30 minutes later, he was dead. He died literally of sorrow within 30 minutes. That's amazing.
They say if you make the decision about death or about anything in your life, that you will achieve it.
You could,
no matter what it is.
And again, don't try to
stop your own heart.
Because I've gone very morbid, haven't we, on past lives?
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to have to censor this video, Paul.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Past lives, would you, in summary, whether you consider them a real phenomena or whether they're just a kind of a quirky fantasy imaginary thing, they can be very, very useful. So if you want to explore past lives, you can get audios on the internet, past lives, or you can come to a therapist or somebody who specializes in past lives, because they'll be able to help you interpret the experiences that you go through when you connect with this past life again.
Yeah. And remember, every experience is valid, so whether you believe in it or you don't, everybody's experience of life or past life is valuable in some way. and should be explored.
Okay,
Always.
that's it for today. Like, comment, share, support us.
Absolutely.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning in.